Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keep It Real with America's Supermom. So, we are having a conversation today with Tom. I'm so excited. We got connected through a mutual connection. And I'm just really excited about having this conversation with him as it regards to men, their vulnerability, being able to get unstuck from some of the things that, we just put a lot of pressure on men. We feel like, they're a level of superheroes where you're not allowed to cry, to be sensitive, and just the list can go on and on. So I think we resonate that as with that as women, but as men, really being able to be honest and vulnerable about things that maybe even have you afraid. Right? It could be a downsizing or, just getting older. I could think of a number of things that is common to all of us. So I'm excited to have this conversation today with Tom because he is actually someone who has found a way to kind of solve a problem when it comes to men with their vulnerability. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation today, Tom. And please take a few moments just to introduce yourself before we really dive into this important topic.
Yeah, thank you so much, LaChelle. I really appreciate you having me on today and giving me a stage and a microphone to share about. I'm grateful that
Mhm.
we got connected. Hey, y'all, my name's Tom. I am a life coach, a teacher, community organizer, a guy who likes to dance, hang out with family and friends, travel, explore. And I do a few things in life. The main two professionally is I have a life coaching practice where I work with men one on one who are dealing with heartbreak, feeling stuck in life to create a vision for the next year of their life and establish these skills and practices they need to actually get there. And I also work alongside two amazing men named Troy and Mackenzie in a business called Groups for Men. And we've co
Mm.
created a fully online community of support for men by men with daily support groups on Zoom, one on one coaching, as well as deep dive courses to help men get unstuck and mobile in their life and moving forward towards the things that they actually want to be doing.
I love that, and by anybody looking at you, you look like, hey, you have it all together. I mean, I just think, for you to do this type of work, what was it that really had the signal for you to say, you know what, I think I want to go in this lane and help men do this? What was it that happened for you, or, just kind of sparked that fire in you?
Mm, yeah, great question. While I certainly pride myself, I'm proud of where I'm at in life. I do not have it all together, and I think that's an important thing to preface with. The
Hmm.
fire for me comes from a couple things. The biggest thing, though, is I've lost three very close male friends to suicide in the last 15 years. Two of whom I lost when I was in college in New Orleans over a decade ago, and recently, just in the last 4 months, a very dear friend of mine took his own life. And Harris, Daniel, and Bridger are just a small drop in the bucket of all the people that have chosen to just say, "I'm done with this." When life has
Hmm.
gotten to that point of isolation, of stuckness, of there's no way out, there's no way that's easier than just ending it all. That's where the fire comes for me. The other fire is that I'm a community organizer at heart. My life only makes sense when I'm in community, when I'm around people. I realize my solitude is incredibly valuable to me. It's where I recharge, and we're communal beings. I think we're tribal creatures at heart, and it's where we descend from. And the way our American society in particular is largely set up, I notice a lot of communities where when men in particular and individuals of all kinds are having a hard time, it's much easier to go into isolation. It's very hard for people to share that things aren't going great. And the
Hmm.
questions we ask reflect that, because it's scary to get an answer of how are you and not well, because a lot of us don't know what to do with
Right.
it. And I've experienced that
Yeah.
enough living in Uganda for half a decade, living in America for the rest of my life, all sorts of parts of the world where um, I've experienced what it can feel like to be in a community where people are sharing very openly, and I think it's a very rare thing. So the fire that lights me up is creating more communities like that, and as a man in America, I think men have had such a higher end of the power dynamic for so long. And I think a lot of people, when they hear, hey, we're supporting men, are like, hey, screw men, like they've they've got all the money, they have all the power. I realize that, but men are also responsible for the vast majority of suicide, homicide, arrest,
Mhm.
imprisonment, and I think it's also got to start there. Like men have an opportunity to support the rest of the population by starting to look in the mirror and doing their own work and up leveling themselves and holding one another accountable to a higher standard. And it's not a zero sum game. So I think this type of work that I do helps all other people. And that's a little bit about what lights my fire, what keeps me going on
Wow.
the Zoom calls.
Yeah, I love that. And, you've said so many things that we could probably talk all day about, but I want to touch on the community aspect because, there's a number of people that, we all go through the same thing. I know when I was going through depression for 13 years, I had so many walls of isolation because I believe, nobody knows what I'm going through, or, I'm the crazy one, no one understands. But when you're thinking about community and allowing people the space to, be transparent and really talk about a lot of these things that they bury inside, what would you say is the best way to kind of engage with people to get them to trust, to be able to get out of their comfort zone and admit some of these things that, a lot of people would shun them for, or, they just act like it's not a big deal, hey, stop being sensitive and all these other things. I mean, we're talking like generations of, you know, attitudes and beliefs around certain things. So how do you get people to turn the page on that and do something different?
Yes. Yes. Well said. I work and live off this adage that I don't think anyone wants to be fixed. I think we all want to be invited. You know, when we're trying to be
Mm.
fixed, when someone says something like, "Oh, you should do this, you got to be more X, Y, and Z," even if we know they're right, I think a lot of us can agree we probably shut down a little bit. We're probably like,
Mhm.
"Nah, you're not right," or it takes some softening to actually get there. Yet being invited into community, I mean, we all want to be invited more. I think that's so important. I think step one is just modeling it, is
Mhm.
showing other men and other people that not only is it possible to is it possible to share openly both about what I call the rough edges and the positives in our life,
Mhm.
that to see how it actually feels to do that in a place where you're going to be actually met by trust, non-judgment, curiosity, compassion. So step one is, I think, for the people that are like myself who are really pushing this value and saying, hey, we got to be more community connect, like we got to be more community oriented. We need to bring men more into community. So when I run my group later tonight on Zoom, for example, with a bunch of guys, I
Mhm.
try to model that behavior first and foremost by sharing the full spectrum of me, you know,
Mhm.
making sure guys know that just because I talk about this, I live my life around it, and I practice self growth and personal development and psychology all the times. I don't have it all together, and if I did, I don't think I'd be relatable anyway because no one does.
I love.
And so it's just modeling it, and I think desensitizing it to guys. So the more and more they're in space, they come to a second group and a third group, and all of a sudden they take a shot at opening up. And that first time that someone meets us from us sharing like, hey, you know what, I had a really hard week, my partner got really mad at me, I might lose my job, my bank account's a lot lower than I want it to be, sex life is confusing to me still, I hold shame about this, whatever it is. It's
Mhm.
when we see that other people are doing it and they're not met with being chastised or isolated, they know it's possible.
Mhm.
And I think it
Yeah.
also takes a very specific type of space to hold that, because a lot of people will meet that with judgment, and it's usually not
Mhm.
about you, it's just certainly can feel that way, and it can cause us to close off when the person we're being vulnerable with doesn't know how to actually listen and support us the way we need them to.
Yeah. And there's just so many elements to that because I was on this community. this app Clubhouse, and you have a lot of people. It's an audio app. They come in, they feel very comfortable sharing their story. It's like, oh, I'm not on camera. This is just audio. But what advice would you give people about, um, navigating through that process of maybe hearing things, right? Because, someone can open up, it might trigger somebody else, or like you said, somebody might have judgment. Do you have a list of norms or certain ways that people are in the community that they are to respond? I think because, it can happen just you don't even realize somebody is just coming out saying stuff and it's a trigger for somebody else. So how do you navigate through that?
Yeah, great question. I guess I'll try speaking to it in two environments. One is, for example, the groups we run at Groups for Men. Like I'm running one this evening, and I'm a trained professional coach, and I'll be facilitating the group. So I'm there to kind of set those parameters and step in as needed. And what we
Mhm.
tell men, one of our principles is that we're not in the business of giving advice. So when someone shares, hey, I'm feeling shame in the bedroom. My girlfriend thinks I'm not great at sex and I'm judging myself, let's say, and they're
Mhm.
just stuck in that story of not know what to do with it. It
Mhm.
can be easy to respond and say, "Oh, just do this. Like just stop watching porn.
Mhm.
Like just talk to her about it." And it's much more, the invitation for guys is one, to listen first and foremost, two, to just acknowledge and see the man, like, hey, I see that that was hard to share, or it meant a lot to hear that. Share about your own personal experience. Like it's a really
Mhm.
valuable thing to share something like that and then hear that other people around you have felt something similar. So a
Mhm.
lot of our men are asked to just really share from their own personal experience of what they've been through, what's helped them, what they've been working through related to a similar issue or other things. And then we'll ask the guys some questions like, hey, where do you need support with that? What would happen if, like, a big thing I work with people on is like, what do you actually want to happen? Because we're really focused on what's
Mhm.
going wrong and asking people like, hey, what is it that you really are desiring here? What would what would be a desirable outcome, and how will you know when you've gotten there? So
Mm.
helping guide people through it rather than just saying, here's how you fix it. And I think in day-to-day conversations with people, if one of your friends opens up to you, I think first just acknowledging them and saying like, wow, thanks for sharing that with me. I feel like you really trust me. And perhaps that's an
Mhm.
invitation to share something from your own experience if you're willing. Like, hey, I've been there too.
Mhm.
Sometimes all we need to hear is like, I get it, or me too, or like I've also been
Mhm.
there. And that might be all someone really needs, at least at the beginning, and then just like let them keep sharing if they want to.
Mm. I love that because I think you said something really important, which is acknowledging them. I think I just know in my own journey, I was not acknowledging anything. I was numb to a lot of stuff, you know? And so when you have that acknowledgement, it's like, okay, um, what am I going to do with this? It's like really at that point, you're making a different decision because you realize you have a choice. You can keep on with this story or you can change it, and it's kind of like being able to see yourself from a different vantage point. So I think that's powerful, that you shared that about the acknowledging because a lot of times, things just continue to repeat themselves. Patterns just keep on going because we don't have that acknowledgement or awareness. I also love that point about the advice. And, I would also say that one of the things that really helped me when I began to be vulnerable is that initially I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to judge me. They're going to think I'm crazy or whatever. And the more I shared, I realized that people, they do their own inner work when you're sharing. It's like, wow, what about that reminds me of me? Or, they begin to, I don't know, it's just inspiring when I hear people talk about something that they went through and they're very open about it because it's like, okay, we're not painting over anything. We're not putting on makeup to dress it up like it's really nice. We're being real and raw. And something about that strength, inspiration, and courage comes through when someone tells that story. Would you not
Right.
agree?
100%. Yeah. And when we choose to be open, when we summon the courage, frankly, to be open like that with a group of people, especially ones we don't know, or especially people we do know, like our family,
Hmm.
we give other people permission to follow and do the same, that it's okay. And I think, my terminal value, my main value in life is courage. And the more we live life and the more we face adverse experiences and challenges, like LaChelle, you've had 15 kids, you've been through so much, and all of us have been through these different experiences that really form and shape us,
Hmm.
that there are moments when we open up to people and we get burned, and people
Yeah.
don't know how to respond to it, and our hearts break.
Hmm.
And so when I see someone really open up, just honestly, candidly, exactly calling it how it is, I'm like, wow, they're still willing to open up to people and build
Yeah.
trust. Like, I think the older we get, the more it takes that courage, and the more we give other people permission, especially those younger than ourselves, opportunities to do the same. We set a new standard that just because at one time in our history, showing your weakness might have been a disadvantage because we were at war or we were in
Hmm.
tribes or other things. Like, now we're at a point where living in isolation just doesn't work. It disconnects us, and there's much bigger health risks there than the potential embarrassment from sharing something that's sensitive and someone not knowing how to receive it.
Yeah. And, so you hit on something even earlier too about being relatable and courage. Um, can you talk to us a little bit about courage? Because I think a lot of people think, oh, I can do this because I have enough money, or I can do this because I have so many followers. So it's like, courage is something you can just flip a light switch on and, grab it when you want it. So talk to us about, how do you nurture courage? How does it begin?
Yeah, that's a fun question. What I do know about courage is the word itself comes from Cora or corazon, the heart,
Mhm.
love. So it's a word that's rooted in our heart. I believe, like, the strength of our heart,
Mhm.
the strength of our resolve. And I think we practice courage through leaning into opportunities to be courageous.
Mhm.
So I'm my belief is that when I tell the world, I tell people around me, I write in my journal that I value courage. In my experience, life, the universe seems to give me opportunities to be courageous. So it's just taking concentrated
Mhm.
actions in a courageous way. It's it's asking the person behind the grocery store counter how their day is going.
Mhm.
It's helping someone pick up their bag when they dropped it. It's seeing someone who's crying and checking in and saying, like, "Hey, are you doing okay? Can I get you anything?" It's calling our parents when maybe we have an idea of how the conversation is going to go and it's stressing us out, and we decide to do it anyway, and really check in to see how their day is going. So for me, courage is just a sort of, I think of it like a gas gauge, and it just keeps growing the more we take action to be courageous
Mhm.
and do courageous things. And sometimes we'll have days where it's like, I don't feel courageous. Like, I don't want to be the one to go first. So trusting other people will do that. And I think courageous is just an accumulation of
Mhm.
doing things outside of our comfort zone that contribute and serve others and are from a place of love and care for other humans and beings.
Mhm. I love that, because I tell my kids, they think they come to me and ask me everything. They think I know everything. I'm like, I don't know. Look that up on YouTube or something, right? But, it's doing it afraid, right? You don't know what that outcome is going to be, but you're going to do it anyway, right? I have this saying with my team, and I say, hey, we're building the plane while we're flying. So we're already up there, we're doing our work as we go. And I think, that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize about courage. It's a muscle that you build by taking those actions and those steps. So I love what you said about, the heart and the strength. I think once you're in tune with your purpose and what it is that you are seeking to accomplish, and you can get that in line with your heart, you can have the resilience to do anything, right? Because you're
Yeah,
going to have challenges.
for sure. And I would add, I think I totally agree with that. And I think some people can get caught up in this very elusive definition of purpose. Like, oh, I've got to have all, as you alluded to, I've got to have all the money, got to have the right job,
Mhm.
family's got to be great. Like, how, like, everything's got to be dialed in before I know what my purpose is. Like,
Right.
our purpose can just be like, I want to make one person's day slightly better before I go to bed. Like, that's purpose as far as I'm concerned. Like,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to
Mhm.
be so complex and about the content of our life, more of just about the values that we want to bring in the world. And, my purpose oftentimes is just to have more meaningful conversations. And I think if anyone, I mean, for anyone listening to this, I would say, like, simplify that range of what you think your purpose is and just go out there and do one small thing that puts you in that direction and see how it feels. Because in my experience, the more we do it, the more it feels good to do, because we get to feel the
Mhm.
positive impact on doing courageous things or whatever that word is that guides you.
Yeah. I love that because, that's really, to me, massive action is doing something small, but doing it every day, right?
Hmm.
Being consistent. And
Yes.
before you know it, you build that muscle and you can add other things to it. It's like a chain link necklace or something. You can just keep adding chains once you get the whole process down. So I think that's a great point that you brought up, because a lot of people think, oh my gosh, this thing, I have to do something big in order for it to have an impact. But so many things that we realize, it's those little things that we didn't even realize we were doing that really impacted someone's day, right? A
Yeah.
smile when they, were feeling down, and you're a stranger and you're taking notice of them. They're being seen and heard. So I love that you shared that.
Yeah. Beautiful. And
So
one
when
thing
you're
I would,
thinking of, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to add one detail. This keeps coming up in conversations recently, which is this idea of comparison. And I think a lot
Mm,
of times comparison can be the thief of joy. Perhaps many of us have heard those, sayings and things
yeah.
about comparison. And what I notice is a lot of people right now are understandably comparing themselves to other people's business websites, other people's LinkedIn pages, social media accounts, which are honest reflections, hopefully, of people. And they're also very much reflections of how we want the world to see us,
Mhm.
understandably, because it's incentive to us to be an influencer, to have a successful business and make sales. So I get that. And what happens, I think, in these spaces like our groups, at Groups for Men, for example, is when we're in a room and we're in a space where everyone's just being fully honest about who they are, we're comparing ourselves to people who are just as, like, honest and raw and real as we are. We're getting the full range. Or comparing ourselves to ourselves a month ago, where
Mhm.
we can kind of dwell in, like, oh, I'm 30, I'm 40, I'm 50, and I thought I was going to be here and I'm not. I think instead we can compare ourselves to, hey, where have we come from? Like, even this
Mhm.
week, how many things have you done that have made someone's day a little bit better? Like, setting ourselves up with indicators that actually reflect the good that we're doing versus dwelling in how far we have yet to go. And it's hard because we're comparing ourselves to, I think, largely like incomplete pictures of people's actual lives, because it's not always sexy and advantage to share about, "Ooh, I had a day full of shame and I didn't make any money." Yet
Right.
that's a lot of people's experience on a given day. So just wanted to bring that up, is how something like comparison can even work for us depending on what we're focusing on.
It's so true. And definitely it impacts, whatever industry you're in, because, you have, I know for me, I'm in television. So it's like,
Hmm.
hey, who's going to go and have a bunch of bloopers if it's not a series, right? You're
Yes.
not going to put all the things behind the scenes because you want to have a good finished product. And that's one of the main reason why I have the word real as like a highlight reel, to help people to know that, a lot of this stuff is manufactured because it should be, right? You don't want to have a tore up book cover, but understanding how to look beyond the surface and dig a little deeper into the story. And I love what you brought that up because even when we think we're comparing ourselves to other people, we still don't know what was their experience. How what are their skill set? Do they have people helping them? Are they doing it alone? I mean, there's so many different factors that we really are not even comparing apples to apples. A lot of times
Mhm.
it's an apple to a grapefruit or a plum to a grape. You see what I'm saying? So I
Mhm.
love that you brought that up. And I always tell myself, look, the only competition you have is who you were yesterday, because that's
Mhm.
the only thing I really know the inside story to. Everything else, I don't know. I only know what they want me to know, and then it depends on your position and where you're at right now. Maybe you're more concerned about outward appearance, instead of matters of the heart, because we go through things and our emotions can spark us to notice certain things that other things, they're right in front of us and we still don't see
Right.
them. So, I know we got to wrap up because you've got your group that's coming up tonight. So, if you had just 1 minute to talk to somebody who is feeling like, they're stuck, um, whatever the case may be, they're nervous about vulnerability or anything, to where someone is really in a space where they need a community, some support, or maybe even some coaching, what is it that you would share with them?
Yes. So for any men or humans or partners of men, anyone has a brother, a friend in their life that is feeling deeply stuck right now. Like I don't know where to go. I don't know what's happening, and it's not what I want. I've got a place for you. I've got groups on Zoom for you. I've got a coaching space for you to get day to day support, and I've got courses to help you get unstuck. My ask is that you take a little bit of a leap of faith, perhaps, and come join one of our groups. Turn your camera on, turn your microphone on, introduce yourself, and let us know how you're doing. And let us take it from there and know that we're going to grow a lot stronger as a collective rather than individually. So,
Mm.
that tendency to want to get really quiet and isolate is going to be there. And just give it one shot to come join us at groupsformen.com or my website, tomkarrel.com, and just let me know what's going on. I'm going to offer you some questions, some tools to help you move forward, and give it a week and see what happens.
I love that. And, one thing that came up when you were talking is, helping us to see that it's not a one and done, it's a daily thing. So, what do
Yeah.
you do to keep yourself?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I've got my foundational practices that I do. Meditation has been key in my life for about 8 years now. A simple daily practice for meditation. I like moving my body. So, yoga, dance, surfing, or playing tennis are my big things. And also writing in my journal and reading. Those are some of the big practices I do to really help take care of myself. Um, Another thing is just finding balance. So the more my businesses grow and the harder I work, I can easily just get swept up in all that. So I set parameters on when I'm working and when I'm not working, so that I have time for my partner and my family and to keep in touch with friends.
Mm.
Balance and having structure in my days helps give me the freedom to keep living my life the way I want to when I'm still taking on more connections and more things professionally.
Love that. It takes work. And I think a lot of people think, oh my gosh, I could just turn on a button or, pay this amount and it's going to take care of everything. But it takes us doing the work. Well, thank you so much, Tom, for all your wisdom and insight. And I really appreciate your vulnerability because I think, again, like you said, it takes us mirroring the things that we want to pull out of other people by us having the courage to share, in our own journey. So I really appreciate your time. And any final words for the audience that you might want to share?
LaChelle, thank you so much. I love having conversations, and I really appreciate the stage and connecting you in this way. Yes, to anyone listening, any men out there, male identifying individuals, if you know of men in your life that could use support, are feeling stuck, or just need more connection and are feeling like they're going this alone, check us out at groupsformen.com. Groups for Men is our name, or my personal business is Tom Karrel Coaching, or tomkarrel.com, TomKarrel. And check us out, drop us a line. You can join our Groups for Men groups a week for free just to check them out and see if you like them before you
Mhm.
make any financial commitments. And I'd love to see you on a Zoom group sometime soon.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this evening. Again, if you want to reach out to Tom, his information is scrolling on the bottom of the screen. If you would like a personal introduction, just reach out to me and I'll be happy to connect you both. So, everybody, thanks so much for watching and share this conversation. If you have someone that you care about and you don't know the words to say, but you would like them to hear somebody who can be a good resource for them, share the video. I'm sure they would really appreciate it because, a lot of times being vulnerable can be a hard thing. It's a hard first step to make. So, anything that we can do to help other people live better, feel better, and do better, we're willing to do that. So, thank you guys again for watching, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Bye for now.
Thank you all. Thanks, LaChelle. Take care.
You're welcome.